begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words, let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Every sound, every line brings us closer to turning our learners into super prosers. Phonics and fun, on a journey we'll lead. With every Tuesday, we plant another seed. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesday.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Teaching Tuesdays with me, your host, the founder and CEO of Dreams KC, your local, as in Kansas City, Missouri, education nonprofit where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their students, their children, their most prized possession, foundational literacy skills. Maybe I shouldn't say possession, right? But our gift, a gift that's been given to us and then that we guide and give back unto the world. So welcome, welcome, welcome to those of you that are joining us for the first time. I so appreciate you joining us. For those of you that are with me each and every week and have been for the last 45 weeks, welcome back. Thank you so much for your continued support. You are in for a treat today. 2025 is off and running. I am so excited to be engaging with you around adolescent literacy learners in the year of 2025. Now, don't get afraid. Don't be concerned that if you are a parent of a child that is not yet an adolescent, a grandparent, an educator, and your students are not yet adolescents, that you can't get anything from these Teaching Tuesday sessions during this year. You will, you can, I guarantee it, because always remember that the skills are the skills. No matter what age the children are, the skills don't change. What does change is our strategies and often the materials and supplies that we use to reach our children, dependent upon what age they are, what grade level they're at. But we have to be honest with ourselves, and whether our students are pre-Kers or whether they're 11th graders, many of our students, in fact, right here in Kansas City, our data mirrors what's happening in urban areas across the country. When we look at third grade reading scores, literacy scores, what we're seeing, especially for African American children, 85% are 2 or more grade levels behind. Just let that sink in for a second. 86% of our Hispanic brothers and sisters, children, are 2 or more grade levels behind. And 46% of their white counterparts are 2 or more grade levels behind. In the state of Missouri, for quite some time, we've had a 50% literacy rate as it relates to our children. So we can't aspire to get to the 50% mark, right? In terms of success. We want to go beyond that. So we set high standards, knowing that the data and the research tells us that 90% of our children, no matter their age, are capable. They have the intellectual ability to learn how to read and read efficiently, to become the confident and competent readers that we know that they can be, that we want them to become, because as we always say at Dreams KC, literacy is liberation. It sets them up to thrive academically and in their own lives, be it healthcare, housing, economic development, you name it, being employed on a well-paying job and or becoming an entrepreneur or going to college and university or getting certified in some type of trade. Literacy is key. It is not going anywhere. And we want to ensure that all of our children, but certainly our adolescent learners, aren't left behind. Because more often than not, what we are seeing is that we are addressing the literacy skills of young learners as if our upper elementary, middle school, and high school students, we're just ignoring the fact that they have gaps or challenges. And we have the ability to support them in closing those gaps, in eliminating those challenges. So that's why we do the work that we do. For those of you that don't know me well, let me introduce myself very briefly. Again, my name is Catina Taylor. I'm the founder of Dreams KC, and I taught for 15 years. I taught in the middle school. My first few years of teaching was middle school English language arts. Then I transitioned to elementary school where I taught first grade, and I wrapped up my classroom teaching experience teaching high school, which is actually where my certification is. It's in high school history. So I have been in classrooms for 15 years. I've been in the education space for 25. And I hope, and the parents that I have worked with in regards to their children would tell you that I've had remarkable results moving their children across or along their literacy journey, as well as some adults too. So again, thank you for joining us. Guess where we are? Week 45 weeks, every single week, whether it's been live or pre-recorded. We have been here in the Literacy the Dreams Way Facebook group, formerly known as Reading the Phonics Way. But I really changed the name for those of you that may just be coming or know that we transitioned from one name of the group to another. Is I wanted people to be really clear that reading is so much more than phonics. Phonics is a part of it, but it is not all of it. And so I wanted to make sure that our name, the name of this Facebook group, and the work we do really mirrors what we know to be true about reading. So again, welcome to episode 45 of Teaching Tuesdays. I'm so excited to have you here with me. And what are we going to talk about today? We are going to be talking about Tolman's hourglass figure and letters. And you may hear both of these terms from classroom teachers, from newspaper articles, from watching the news, going into parent-teacher conferences, talking to tutors, other parents. I like to spend time breaking down what these mean and then why it's important that you know what they are and how they apply to the literacy journey of your children. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. By the end of this session, it is my hope that you feel more equipped and empowered to help your adolescent child or student build stronger reading and writing skills, both at home and in collaboration with their school. So let's get to it, y'all. Let's get to it. I have my helpers on today, but I'm still going to make this big. I want to make sure that you all can see it really well, and so can I. All right. So what you see here is Tolman's hourglass figure. I recreated it using our Dreams KC brand colors because I really wanted it, and I couldn't find a good copy of the actual hourglass figure. So Carol Tolman is a professor who created this a number of years ago, and it really just simplifies or gives us a map for literacy development. I want you to understand that at the top of the hourglass, we have those early literacy skills, and you see they're categorized as early skills, basic skills, and more advanced skills, and they fall under the umbrella of phonological awareness. One thing I want to say about these very early skills, the syllables, the alliteration, and the onset rhyme, they really give a solid oral and auditory foundation for what students will learn later and connect to later. However, if your child doesn't master these skills, what we have learned is that that is not an indication that they will never become good readers. Will it help them? Absolutely. If they miss it a bit, it may be a bit more challenging. That's why we encourage mastery of these very early skills early on. And when I say early on, I'm talking about even prior to kindergarten, right? Or in those early years, we want to ensure that they are mastering, and you'll hear me use that term a lot, mastering these skills, because it makes reading a bit more less complicated, less complex, easier as they go along, right? So I want to make sure that you understand that and when I'm talking about early, I'm not talking about what's in the blue, the pink, and the gray. I'm just talking about that very top piece that says early. So the syllables, the alliteration, and the onset rhyme. So I want to be very clear about that. Do I want them to master them? Absolutely. They generally would do this in home in a really high quality early childhood or pre-K program, and we move on from there. What is mastery? You heard me use that term. I said you'll hear me use it a lot. Mastery means that a student, an individual child, can demonstrate understanding of a skill or a concept independent of our support and help, right? They independently demonstrate their understanding with 90% accuracy. That's what mastery means. And they can do it, right? And we ascertain their mastery through observation or informal or formal assessment. Okay. So I want you to understand that they can do it. It is an expectation that they do it. We want them to do it with accuracy, and we want them to do it independent of support from us, the teachers and or the parents. Do we introduce the skill? Yes. Do we engage with them in practicing the skill? Yes. Do we observe and support them when they make mistakes with the skill? Yes. Eventually, however, they will have done enough practice that they can demonstrate mastery. So that's the goal. That is the plan. So again, Tolman's hourglass figure is a visual representation of the building blocks of reading, right? Showing how everything builds upon itself. I often give the analogy of walking up a flight of stairs or running down a flight of stairs, right? Is that everything builds upon it. And we've long understood and known that about math. And I think in a lot of ways, we've missed it about reading. And that's why we find some of our adolescent learners struggling, because they missed a step or two in the process, right? So again, the top is those early language skills. The middle, it focuses on the phoneme, grapheme, sound to letter correspondence, because at the top, everything is oral and auditory. In that middle, we then start connecting what they have learned orally and auditorily to actual printed text. And then the bottom expands into the advanced literacy skills, all surrounding the written word, right? And I want to make sure that you all understand that it gets more complex as we go. So it starts off simple, and the complexity, the challenging pieces of it, it gets more complex as we go. I also want to point out a couple of words on here. Remember, you are free to screenshot this, to take notes. I hope you are. But I want to point out some terms that you'll see here, because you may sit down with a special ed teacher. You may sit down with a classroom teacher. You may sit down with a tutor or a reading interventionist or a school administrator. And they will often use this professional vocabulary, forgetting that you all as parents have not gone to school or necessarily been exposed to some of this language. You may understand it in layman's terms. So I want to make sure that you can connect to this academic professional vocabulary that you see here on the hourglass figure, along with understanding it in simple, plain English. It doesn't need to be difficult. I want you to be a real partner in the literacy journey of your children. And one of the ways that you can do that is not only understanding these concepts, but also understanding the language that is being used and communicated as teachers and other adults talk to you about your child's skill set and literacy journey. All right. So you'll see at the bottom of the hourglass, orthography. Orthography really is nothing more but the rules and conventions of writing in a language. That's all it means. I wrote my little note here and it says, and I don't even necessarily like this, but basically it includes how to spell words, how to use punctuation, when and where we capitalize letters, and then it creates what we call word boundaries, right? Think of orthography, bottom, as the instructional manual for writing. Okay. It defines the correct way to write words. It includes spelling, punctuation. It helps us standardize our writing system. Now, what happens in English doesn't necessarily translate to what happens in Spanish or French, etc. Each language, like I just gave an example of French, Spanish, English, etc., they have their own orthography, their own set of rules. So I want you to understand that as well. Orthography, again, I talked about it. It explains why we capitalize the first letter of sentences, why we use specific spellings for words, why we follow punctuation rules, etc. So when you think of orthography, I want you to think about the correct way to write in a particular language, simply put. All right. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. Phonemes, letter sounds, graphemes, letters. All right. And we'll get more into these things, but I really wanted to just point out some key things that you'll consistently see if you tune in for Teaching Tuesdays and you stick with me, or you come to any of our in-person trainings as well. The etymology of a word, you'll see that just above orthography. The etymology of a word is really the life story of a word. One, how to pronounce it is hard. You saw me take a breath. I always got to remind myself how to do it. The etymology really is the life story of a word. It's how it was born, where it came from, and how its meaning had changed over time. The way that I help people understand this is to think of Aquila and the Bee. If you have not seen that movie, go watch it. Or anytime you see students participate in a spelling bee, they often are asked, like, is it Greek? Is it Latin? Right? That's the origin, the etymology of the word, right? So think of it as a family tree for words, the original language that created it, and how words travel and transform across different cultures and time periods, how it evolves. So I just wanted to make sure that you all understood when we talk about the etymology of a word, that that's what we're talking about. And then when we talk about the bottom portion of the hourglass, which is where most of our adolescents will probably, not always, but probably have some gaps in their learning, is in that orthography portion of the hourglass. So that's why I'm zeroing in here and pointing these things out for you all. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that I covered that, and then we gonna keep it moving, y'all. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if anything that I'm explaining is not clear, drop it in the comments. Remember, I come back, I look at your comments, I try to provide you feedback. I want you to be active and engaged in these Teaching Tuesday segments, because not only, believe it or not, if you ask a question, 9 times out of 10, someone else also has the same question. So I want to ensure that you all are asking questions, and no question is out of bounds, no comment is out of bounds. I'm here for it all. I got thick skin. If you have some critiques or anything, please feel free to drop them in the comments for us so we can learn together. All right. All right. So let's keep it moving, you all. So then you heard me say I'm going to talk about letters. Letters is really important. The teaching of letters, educators going through training, administrators going through training, early childhood teachers going through training right now. Across most of the states in this country, they are being trained in what we call letters. Letters is an acronym, and it means language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. It's the essential information that teachers need to teach reading and spelling. Now, you may ask, why is it that this is happening now? Well, because we have about 4,000 colleges and universities across this country that teach teachers how to go into the classroom and be effective, but only about 10% of them have effectively taught teachers how to teach reading. So when you send your children to school and you think that they are with a very sound professional that has the skill sets to effectively teach literacy, reading and writing and spelling, more often than not, those teachers, those educators have not received what they needed to effectively teach reading and writing and spelling. And we just have to be honest about that. It's no shade. They paid to go to school. They thought they were getting what they needed. And 9 times out of 10, they did not. So here we sit with the data and the information that I've shared with you all. So I wanted you all to be clear about letters, why it exists, what's happening. It's really a comprehensive program that provides educators with the science behind teaching and reading. It is not a curriculum. It's not a program that they can take back to their school and apply. They are spending time learning how we build neural pathways for children to engage with the printed text, because as human beings, we are not born with that ability. We are born with the ability to engage with oral language, not written language. So from birth through 3rd grade, we are spending a significant amount of time, believe it or not, building new neural pathways, new pathways in the brain to understand and engage with the printed word. And most people don't know that. So that's what educators that are going to letters training, seeking out this professional development, that's what they're learning. Now you say, well, why do I need to know that? If that's happening for teachers and at schools, why is that important for me? Well, because you need to also understand the crucial skills involved in reading development. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know how to advocate for your child, and you certainly wouldn't know how to support them in their literacy journey if you don't know what's happening in their brain and how you can support that brain development. So just as crucial as it is for those educators, in my opinion, it's even more crucial for parents to know this information, because guess what? You're the most important educator of your child. And I want to ensure that you all have the tools necessary to move them along and support them in their literacy journey. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand this. It's absolutely just as invaluable to you as it would be for educators. So letters explains the why and the how behind reading instruction, giving you insight into what skills your child needs to develop and how you can support them. I'm looking at my notes. I want to read them directly because I want to make sure you get this, okay? So whether it's phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, letters training, this letters science, right? It really helps us understand the building blocks of literacy in a clear and, here's the most important word, actionable way. How we can take action to move them along their literacy journey. All right. All right. So let's keep it moving. So when we talk about those early skills, phonological awareness, phonics, phonemic awareness, etc., that's that foundation. Literacy is built on this foundation, and we need to understand that sounds matter. I was just talking to a parent last night at an early literacy fair, and her child is 1. And I said, so what are you doing already? She said, I'm singing the ABC song. I was like, and that's fine. However, what really matters and what's most important early on is that they learn the sounds that those letters or those symbols make, those graphemes make. Because if you just teach them the alphabet song, A, B, C, D, and they learn these letters, well, generally they're not going to know them out of order. Generally, if they just learn a song, they always have to go back to the beginning. And I see this time and time again, and sing the song in order to know what letters come where. That's not what we want, right? And we'll get more into that, and I'll teach you how to actually teach it. But if you want to spell the word cat, you need to know cat, not C-A-T. I mean, eventually you get there, but it's more important that we know the sounds that make up that word, the phonemes, and not necessarily the letter names. All right. So phonology, phono, sound, explores the sounds of language, teaching your child how to recognize and manipulate sounds and words. And then decoding the code, right? So phonics, when we bring phonics in, it helps your child understand the relationship. It starts connecting the phonemes, the sounds, to the actual graphemes, the letters. So we have that one-to-one correspondence. They learn that A goes with the letter A. They learn that the sound K goes with the letter C. All right. But if you notice, when we looked at that hourglass figure, that's in the middle. They do a lot of work with phonemes before they ever get to connecting those sounds with the graphemes or the letters, right? So I want you to understand that we get there, but early on, when we're building that foundation, it's mostly oral and auditory, what we say, what we hear, etc. So I just want you to understand the foundation. Because if we assess our students and we feel that and we know that they have gaps, or we listen to them when they're sounding out words or etc., and we realize they have gaps, then we know where to play. Oh, they have a gap in their early foundational skills. That's where we need to spend time closing that gap, giving them an opportunity to practice and work toward mastery. All right. I hope that makes sense for you all, right? So phonology focuses again on sounds. It helps them hear, manipulate sounds and words. And then the phonics connects those sounds to letters, enabling them to decode words, unfamiliar new words. At home, what can you do? You can practice these skills by playing sound games, like asking them to identify beginning sounds, middle sounds, ending sounds, etc. By reading decodable books. You see some in the background on my little shelf there. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be listening to them read. All right. So I wanted to make sure we got through that. You have that information. And so it's like, what's next? Now, many of our older children, our adolescent learners, fluency, comprehension seem to be very, very significant challenges for some of our older readers. They may get some of the foundational things out of the way, but they're not understanding, they're not reading fluently. And that's where we want to zero in, focus on. So, what does fluency really mean? It means reading smoothly, accurately, and with expression. That contributes to our understanding, the comprehension of the text that we are reading. How do we build fluency? We make sure that they have demonstrated mastery of those early skills. Then we give them an opportunity to practice reading repeatedly, sometimes some text. I always tell a parent, especially when they're reading decodable text and things of that nature, let them read it at least 3 times. We read it together. They may listen to me read it while they follow along. We read it when we say reading it together, we mean choral reading, almost like we're singing together, right? And eventually then they read independently. All right. So that really helps them build those fluency skills. Engaging with text, of course, is really important. We want them to be asking questions and understanding, discussing a story or a piece of text, connecting it to another piece of text or to the world or to their own lived experiences. That really aids them in developing their understanding and comprehension of a text. So I want you to be really, really clear. Once that foundation is in place, that fluency and comprehension, it comes into focus. It generally is what is preventing or hindering or providing challenge to our older or adolescent learners. Fluency again is all about reading smoothly and with expression. It encourages, and I would say, again, encourage them to reread their favorite books or read aloud with you to build their confidence, because we know, right? I say it all the time. As we build their confidence, they're willing to try more. And the more they try and practice, we're building their competence. And we want them to be confident and competent readers. All right, so let's move forward. So then we talk about vocabulary. That's another big one for our adolescent learners. So when I talk about adolescent learners, most of us think teenagers. In the education space, we're talking 4th grade and above. So not early elementary, right? But upper elementary, middle school, and high school when we think about our adolescent learners. Okay. So that's how I'm defining it. Your school may do something different, but generally, there is acceptance in the education space. And when we talk about our adolescent learners, we're talking about upper elementary and above. Okay. So I just want you to understand that. So, vocabulary, it plays a significant role in the literacy development of our children. And again, reading aloud is one of the best ways to introduce new words. Now, I also love crosswords. I love word searches. I love a word of the day, a word of the week. I have a dictionary. I have a thesaurus. We need those tools to introduce, practice, review new words, unfamiliar words. Even if you have a composition notebook laying, around, and they create their own dictionary, meaning it's a journal, a word journal, as they learn new words or introduce, come across new words in their math and their science and their social studies, or even in their fiction books or nonfiction books that they're reading for pleasure, jotting them down. We've discussed them, we've learned them. If I need to refer back, I can do that, right? So those are great ways to not only introduce them to new words and new vocabulary, but also for them to practice, refer back, and retain that knowledge, moving it from their short-term memory to their long-term memory. So you want to pause during any type of reading, be it fiction and or nonfiction, to discuss meanings or words in context, or connect the words to real life situations. Anytime we can relate something to our daily lives, our real lives, we retain it much easier and much longer. If we can't make a connection to it, oftentimes it makes it a bit more difficult for us to grasp that new vocabulary or that new concept. It's the same thing for children. We want to make sure that we're connecting it to real life situations if we can. Even casual conversations are opportunities to expand vocabulary, especially those kids that always want to be around adults and engage in conversations with us. Whether they do or they don't, that's up to you. But we know some kids do. So they will often then come to you later or in the midst and ask you, well, what did that mean? That's an opportune time to teach. Whether it's appropriate or not, I have no judgment here. But what I'm saying is, even casual conversations are opportunities to expand their vocabulary, talk about word meanings, use interesting words, and then explain them as they come up. Are they watching their favorite show and something comes up and they're like, what is that? A movie? A lot of people have been going to the movies lately. I think Musafa was out and a couple of other children's movies. But I'm sure there's still some vocabulary, even though those are children's movies and things like that come up. It'd be a great way to explain new and unfamiliar words to them and get them excited about expanding and growing their vocabulary. Then when you run across the words again, if they've already been introduced, then you ask them, do you remember what that means? Remember we talked about that? Remember it was in your favorite movie or your favorite book? Again, that connection for them, it really takes it from that short-term memory to that long-term memory. Why is it important that we get that vocabulary into their long-term memory? So that they can access it later. It lives then in a file cabinet that they can pull out whenever they need it. So I want you to understand that the vocabulary plays a part, and we want to make sure that we are addressing vocabulary for our adolescent learners, because again, that is a significant contributing factor to some of the challenges that they may be experiencing as literacy learners. All right, let's keep it moving. So then we say, all right, we know the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is meaning making when we read. We want to understand and make meaning out of the words on the page. That's our comprehension. That is our comprehension. So how do we boost the comprehension of any learner, but especially our adolescent learners? So we want to ensure that we are encouraging them to predict what's going to happen next. Connecting text to text, text to self, text to world, connections. We want to make sure that they are doing that throughout their reading and anytime they're reading. How are they thinking about and experiencing this text, this story, these concepts, because that happens with fiction and it should also be happening with nonfiction. So the genre doesn't matter. We want to ensure that they are practicing and utilizing these skills. Again, during reading, we want to pause to discuss what's happening, ask questions. Why did they do that? How did you know that? How were they feeling? What told you they were feeling that way? Why do you think the author used this word versus that word? We want to be asking questions throughout the experience, especially for our older learners, because again, it is pushing them to think through and about what they're reading, not just focus on decoding the words. And then, of course, you also want them to be able to summarize and reflect upon what they read. So, what was that about? If you had to tell somebody about this story or this concept and they've never been exposed to it, what would you say? In a way that doesn't take them through every single detail in the book or the text, the piece of text that they just read. So, practicing that over and over again is really going to be important to support them in boosting their comprehension strategies. And then reflecting. Last week I talked about Bloom's taxonomy. Go back and look at Teaching Tuesday from last week if you didn't see it, because we want them synthesizing, analyzing text. We don't want them just at the lower level recalling the who, what, when, and where. No, as adolescent learners and any child on their literacy journey, they should be increasingly being able to engage with text in a way that is more rigorous. And summarizing and reflecting on text gets us there, if that makes sense. I hope you all are understanding what I'm putting down. This is pre-recorded, you all. I'm not with you right now. I guess I should have said that. I was out of town. The start of this year, January, has been crazy busy. So I haven't been live with you all, but I know that I didn't want to miss it. So I've been pre-recording these. So today is another pre-recorded session. But again, drop the comments there. Drop the comments there because I'm coming back and I'm looking. All right. Okay. So that's what we want to say. I just want to make sure that you all understand that these are active reading strategies. They make a significant difference, a big difference for our adolescent learners. And so I want to make sure, again, that before reading, during reading, and after reading, we are practicing these strategies. These are very simple things, simple steps to turn reading into a more engaging and meaningful experience, leading to increased comprehension skills. All right. So then you say, okay, Catina, we got it. What's next? We're with you. Writing is next. Why? Because they are like this. They are not like this. They're not separate. They are dependent, intersected with one another. Reading and writing, reading and spelling. Those things all go hand in hand together. So it also assists with comprehension, vocabulary development, spelling, because we're taking all of the things that we've been learning as readers and applying it to our writing. As they grow as readers, they should be growing as writers. We want them reading and writing. Literacy encompasses all of that, not one or the other, but both and. Okay. So writing is a really great way to reinforce literacy skills. And I would encourage you all, if you have a student that is creative, encourage them to create their own journal, decorate it, all those things, and then begin to write in it, whatever they want to write. It's not necessarily a diary. They can make it whatever they want. They can write stories in it. They can dream about their future in it. It doesn't have to be their secrets. But if it is, we respect that. But you tell them that if they're keeping a journal for the sake of unleashing their creativity or boosting and supporting their literacy skills, this may be a journal where mom, dad, teacher is going to read it and engage with it so that they understand that what they put in there will be open. If they want a separate journal for their own heart thoughts, head thoughts, things that they want privately to express, letters they want to write to themselves, we honor that. And it's just in a different notebook or journal or what have you. So I just want to kind of give it those parameters, right? So writing is a really great way to, again, to reinforce their literacy skills. And I would encourage you to have them keep a journal. Not everyone is a journal person. I never have been a journal person. However, I have a million journals around this house where I take notes about books I read or conferences that I attend and seminars and things like that. So I journal in a different way. Just want to make sure that's clear. But they can write stories, they can jot down thoughts about their favorite books, movies that leave me hanging. That's a big one. Quotes. I have post-it notes that I'll put inside a journal that I want to remember or recall. Why did they say it that way, right? So that can be another way in which they capture or they spend time writing. The more they write, the more confident they become. Remember, confidence leads to competence, and writing doesn't have to be perfect. It's really about expressing ideas and practicing skills. We should be able to see, however, a continuum along the way, that as they master reading skills, their writing is also going to improve because they're going to apply what they have learned in reading. Hope that makes sense. There is a connection. All right, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Every literacy skill in Tolman's hourglass figure, in letters training, the science behind it, the way in which our brains learn to read. It is, I don't care if it's phonics, I don't care if it's comprehension. Those skills build on the skill before. They are steps, they are stairs, they are a ladder, however you need to think about it. A strong foundation leads to future success. We know this, not just in reading, but across all academic subjects. Remember, math, science, social studies, art, music, sports, they have to read playbooks, right? All of these things are steeped in or impacted by literacy. So if our children, our students aren't grasping literacy concepts, skills to mastery, then they will struggle across academic areas, especially upper elementary, middle school, and then high school. So we want to ensure they have a solid foundation early on. And if we discover that they've had gaps in the later grades, then we go back and we address those foundational skills to ensure we are shrinking, closing, eliminating, eradicating those gaps so that they have success, not just in reading, but across all academic areas. I hope that makes sense for you all. Early intervention. The moment we notice something, we should intervene and start assessing what's happening, why it's happening, and how we can support them, so that a small problem doesn't become a larger one over time. We have to be consistent and intentional with our support. So again, we can help close those gaps and we give the children the tools they need to succeed. I got bars. I didn't mean to rhyme, but I did. So again, we just want to make sure it's early, it's often, it's intentional, it's consistent. What do I tell parents generally if they have a child that is having challenges with literacy? Is that we should be working with them a minimum 15 minutes, maximum 45, 5 days a week. That's going to address significant gaps. That's going to address or keep a small problem from becoming a larger one for that particular child. I would love to say to parents, oh, if you just take them to tutoring 1 day a week, it's going to work miracles. It's not. I want to be honest. I don't know any other way to be, but I feel like if you're armed with the truth, then your expectations match. If someone is telling you if they just go to tutoring 1 day a week, will it help? Yes. But it's going to help significantly more if they have more opportunities for direct, explicit, intentional, consistent instruction. 3 to 5 days a week, 15 minutes to 45 minutes, that one-on-one, you will see significant gains in their literacy growth and development. I promise you, you will. So I just want you to understand that all of these skills build on each other. We want a strong foundation. We want to be consistent and intentional and consistent with any support or interventions that we utilize to close a gap or eradicate a gap, and eradicate a gap, not or. Because the goal is that no gap exists. Okay? All right. Last but certainly not least, I want to make sure that you remember that this is not something you do independently of the school. What do I mean by that? Is that we are partnering. This is a partnership between home and school. So you need to stay in regular communication with their teachers, with their special ed departments, with their interventionists, with any tutors that they're working with, anyone that is working on the literacy development of your child. You should be a part of that team, and you are collectively discussing what needs to happen, how it needs to happen to eradicate any challenges for this particular child that currently exists. Okay, so I want to make sure that you understand you are not on the outside looking in. No, you can guide that process in partnership and collaboration with their school. You are the first and most important teacher of your children, and I want you to walk in that power. So you stay in regular communication with them, you understand what they're working on and why, and then where your child or your students may need additional support. Teachers, you should be asking parents, what are they seeing? What are they noticing? And vice versa. It's a two-way, right? So at home, you want to reinforce, once you have this information, we're reinforcing the skills through practice and modeling with patience and love, right? Celebrating the wins, teaching, practicing in the areas where there are challenges. And then we will see that they will grow in their literacy development. I always say that it is not my job to teach them to be lovers of literature, but it is our job to teach them how, so that they can make a decision if they're going to be lovers of literature in their lives. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So we talked about Thomas' hourglass figure. It emphasizes the importance of strong foundational skills. They go step by step, working from the top portion of the hourglass down to the bottom, noticing that in that middle, in that bottom, is where our adolescent learners generally may show some gaps in their learning. We talked about strategies, the letters. You'll hear a lot more about that. I'm sure you've probably heard about that. It provides that evidence-based strategies for supporting reading development at home and in the classroom. And what I'm hoping to see, what I'm advocating for, is that we actually develop a letters training for parents. Ooh, kind of what I do already, right? And then 3, we talked about collaborating and working in partnership with your child's school to ensure that they become the confident and competent readers that we know that they can be, right? So that's it. I think that's what I got. So next week, episode 46, we're going to talk about common literacy challenges. We delved into it and hit the surface a little bit in the prior ones, and even I've talked about some things today, but we're really going to dig in and talk about the challenges that adolescent literacy learners may experience, and explore strategies you can be doing at home to address those challenges. So that's what we're going to be doing next week, episode 46, right here on Teaching Tuesdays with me, Catina Taylor, founder and CEO, founder and executive director. Y'all tell me which one y'all like. Of Dreams KC, where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational literacy skills. That's what I got, y'all. We did really good, 48 minutes today. We're trying to get that 45 mark. As I always say, as I will forever say to you all, you know how we end it, right? Let's get lit. I'll see you all next week. Thank you all. Drop some comments. What was your biggest takeaway today? I'll see you next week. Bye.
Oh, welcome in. Grab a seat. Let's begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words. Let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold.